Got another car dropped off today at the shop. It's a 1972 365 GTC4, and it's painted in Verde Nijinski, which is a color that you don't see very often. And I don't think I've ever worked on a color like this, or a car painted in this color. I kind of really like it, just simply because we see so many of these cars in black and red that when you see it like this, it really stands out. The C4 has always been one of these cars that I think it can be a great car when it's running and driving and everything works, but it can also be labor intensive when things go wrong on it. This car comes to me straight from Miami. It was at the Moto Miami show, and the owner had reached out to me and said, hey, listen, the car's not running really well, and I'd really like to send it to you. Unfortunately, I'm kind of busy at the shop, and also I'm recovering from surgery. So I said, you know, it's going to be a little bit of time before I can get to it. And he said, no, it doesn't matter. I'm not in any rush. I can't really use the car because it's just running so poorly. So I might as well go ahead and send it to you and get in line. So I said, all right, well, if you're okay with that. I mean, I told him that I've got 275 GTS I'm doing some work on. I've got a 400 GT I'm working on with an engine out. So it's a little bit of work. I mean, I usually go around and work on other cars and work on things all together, so they kind of get all completed about the same time. But and then when I'm waiting for parts, I can work on it. But again, it's one of these things, is as long as they're patient and they know that it's just me working on the car, I'm okay. And if I have room for it, I mean, that's the other problem, is sometimes it's just room to store cars. This car is I think it's really aged well. I think it looks really good. It's got pop-up headlights now. That seems to be in vogue. Everybody loves to see these pop-up headlights, and so that's kind of cool. It feels like a modern car because it has power steering. It's got really good brakes, got a good sound, V12 sound. This is kind of like that balance of old school big V12 with carburetors and grunt and noise and popping and spitting, and then on top of it has the modern amenities like air conditioning and power steering that Ferrari wasn't so much into in the 50s and the 60s. And it wasn't until the late 60s and early 70s that they finally get some of it to work correctly. The air conditioning on this thing is not the best. It's not like you're gonna cool it down like your modern Mercedes or Audi. But at the same time, it's an attempt to put modern amenities in these sports cars that Ferrari is selling. So it's much appreciated by people who buy them. The coolest thing about the 365 GTC4 is his engine. I mean, it's pretty impressive. When you look at it, it takes up the whole engine compartment. I mean, the side draft carburetors on this car, it has 6 Weber DCOEs, which are side draft carburetors, and they basically feed a 4.4 liter dual overhead cam engine. And these carburetors feed sideways across the intake manifold. The intake manifolds are integrated into the valve covers, and it's a pretty interesting way for it to get induction past a 4-cam engine. But at the same time, as cool as it is, servicing these engines is not so easy, because everything you do kind of starts by removing the air filters, air cleaners, and carburetors, linkages, just to get to the underside of the engine. As an example, when I was looking at this car, I noticed that there's a little bit of oil down below there, and that's leaking possibly from a valve cover. So if I had to reseal this valve cover, because if that oil leak was that bad, or I said it needs to be stopped, I've got to take all this stuff off, because if it's or let's say it's the exhaust valve cover, which it might not be, I mean, it depends, but if it's one of the valve covers, I've got to take all of these linkages off. I've got to take the air filter off, the air cleaner, the carburetor linkages, just to take this valve cover off to reseal it. Now I can see that there's a little bit of white RTV, which is a common type of sealant that they use. So whoever did the last time they were in this car, they had sealed it, but it might not have taken, or something's happened. I mean, why is the sealant here peeling away here? Is it because I'm not sure. Actually, I really don't know why it's not sealing there. And you can't just take this front chain cover off, because the square O-ring or the round O-ring that goes there and seals these two surfaces is slotted into the timing chain cover. So you got to take the valve cover off first before you get there, else you risk tearing that O-ring. So that's one of the other things. But I mean, I look at this and it looks like someone's done some service on it. It looks like the wrinkle paint looks relatively fresh. A couple of things have been changed. A lot of the hose clamps and hoses look relatively fresh. They look soft. So it doesn't look like the car has been neglected as far as service. It could just be a clogged carburetor that's causing this car to run poorly. It could be ignition. I'd have to take a look at the ignition, which is tucked way up underneath there. You could just see the distributors underneath there that need to get to and check that. What's funny about this car is this car in the early 70s, they sort of switch over to the capacitive discharge ignition systems, or electronic ignitions. So they were still using the distributors to fire the ignition, but they were using electronic control boxes. And what happened here is, what they normally are mounted right here, but the Magneti Marelli control boxes were notoriously unreliable. I mean, it's early electronics. I mean, you got to imagine like 40, 50 years of using them in the heat of the engine compartment, they would start to fail. But what I saw here, and I don't know if I can do this, but if you look in here and you could peel this back just a little bit, you'll find MSD boxes hidden underneath these little covers. I don't know why they're insulated, or they're covered in foam. Maybe they're insulated from the heat. That's a possibility. They're supposed to be pretty durable, these MSD boxes, but they're bright red, and maybe putting them in black covers is not a bad idea, so they don't bring as much attention to the engine bay, like you would say, hey, where are the original Magneti Marelli control boxes. So that's one way of installing modern electronics to let this car run. So, you know, I'm surprised that the car runs so poorly, even with the MSD boxes. So we'll have to dig in a little bit further of what's making this car run. It feels like it's just down in power, like maybe one of the distributors is not firing, or I'll have to do a little bit more searching. But this engine looks impressive, but like I said, it can be labor intensive. I'm hoping we don't have to take everything apart to fix it. I'm hoping it's just a tune-up, but we'll soon find out. The interior on this car looks fantastic. I mean, it looks like, well, I don't think it could possibly be anything but a restored interior. The dash is really nice and clean, and it's reupholstered in what looks like the correct mouse hair dash material. Funny thing about this material is people have nicknamed it through the year mouse fur, and the reason is because it's got this really fine flocking on it, and it's not really suede. It's not really any material, except someone couldn't describe it except somewhere in the past, and I'm not sure who, but they called it mouse fur. And I guess it's that short pile. I've never really petted a mouse, but I guess that's as good of a way of describing it for specifically this material that Ferrari used in the in the 70s. I guess in the early 70s. I guess it started with the Dino, and then the 365 used it. The Daytona and the C4. Most of the other dashes on Ferraris before this were in black leather, and then as they got away from the 70s, I think then they went over to leather and vinyl. So just a few cars had this mouse fur material, but because they put them in the Dinos and Daytonas, there was enough demand for them to reproduce this. But for a while, it wasn't available, and so people were reupholstering their dashes in other materials. I've seen people use Alcantara, which is like that synthetic suede material, which looks pretty good. It's the dull, non-reflective black finish, but This is kind of like the way it's supposed to look like if you were to replace it with original materials. The early stuff tended to get sun faded, so it would go gray. There's also, if you look really closely, it has like a kind of a grain inside of it. So like I've seen two types of mouse fur. One that has this like kind of a little alligatoring grain to it, which to me is far more correct than some of the reproduction stuff that came in the very beginning, which was this really black fur. I mean, it's really subtle. I don't think that most people can tell the difference, but because I see a lot of this stuff, I could see the early gray faded that has the grain when the mouse first starts to get rubbed away. Because what ended up happening is this is like some kind, I'm not sure about the manufacturing, but the flocking was attached to a base material, and as people tried to clean it, the flocking would rub off, and then underneath you would see this grain in the material that was, you know, that it was attached to. But the reproduction stuff early on, there was a mouse fur that came out that just didn't have that underlaying grain, so it was just a really black textured mouse fur. And then there's this stuff. So this looks pretty new, so I think this is the correct stuff, and there's probably one supplier or two suppliers in the world that make it. So you know, you have to be really careful about ordering the correct material if you're going to go through the process and the expense of reupholstering the interior. But this one looks great. I mean, it looks nice and fresh, nice and clean, all done correctly. What is missing here is there's a little rubber ring around here that usually gets destroyed when you reupholster it, so it's missing that. But yeah, they even went so far as to replace the shift boot with the correct mouse fur. My upholsterer told me this story one time where you know, his wife was listening to him saying that they had to order some more mouse fur, and the question was like, geez, how many mice do you have to use to make these interiors? And it was a pretty funny look that he gave his wife to kind of say, well, actually, it's not really mice. But like I said, it's a funny name to use, but it's I guess the best way to describe this material. But anyway, this car has a great upholstered dash, and you know, it's showing 20,000 miles on the clock, so that's pretty impressive. I don't know if that's the original miles or what, but it definitely looks like it's been restored. The interior looks pretty nice, and it looks like it's nice and clean. The mats are correct. The rubber mats on the floor are correct, and it looks like the ski slope, as they call it on a C4, it's called a ski slope dash or center console, and that looks like it's an original one, because I don't think it's been, someone does make a reproduction of this, but this one looks like, with the wear and tear, and I could see a little few marks on it, it's probably original. But the rest of the interior looks like it's been redone. Even the steering wheel looks like it's been redone. But yeah, I mean, this looks pretty good. Let me show you the back seat of this. The C4 back seat is, you know, is it really a back seat? As you can see, when you push the front seats back all the way, there is obviously no legroom whatsoever. It really is kind of like this occasional back seat position. But what really helps on this area is the fact that you can actually pull the seat down and use it for storage. The Daytonas do have a little bit of space behind the seat, but it really isn't a lot. And just that little bit that you can pull down the package tray or pull down the rear seat back and make it into a package tray area to sit makes a big difference to traveling and storing stuff. The upholstery on this car looks pretty good. I mean, I think everybody who did it, they did the correct job. The stitching looks correct. It has this good little cross-stitching pattern that a lot of times, you know, if you don't know it's there, you might not put it back. This all looks pretty good. The one thing I did notice that it is missing are the speaker grills. I think the previous upholsterer may not have had them, so they just chose to put the little perforations in the leather. But there's supposed to be like a plastic grill that goes over the speaker that's mounted on the door panel. but unfortunately that's the first thing your toe hits when you get in and out of the car. So it tends to get cracked and beat up. They are being made in aluminum and much more durable. And I'm gonna see if I have a set I could show you what they look like. But you know, it's one of the things that I noticed on this car that it's missing. But overall, this car looks really nice. I mean, I think a lot of the details in the interior are correct. It looks really nice and clean, and it really sets off this color combination of this Nijinsky green and tan interior. So it's not the usual tan. I don't know what color this is. It's not the usual Ferrari tan, which tends to be a little bit more orange. This one is maybe just another color. I'll have to look up to see what the color of the interior was originally ordered. But it seems to look pretty good next to this green. So one thing that's neat about a 365 GTC4 is how big the trunk is. I mean, when you look inside here, it's a ton of room. I'll have to glue that little bit of carpeting back in there, but compared to a Daytona, man, this trunk can hold a ton of stuff. So as far as road trips are concerned, or a weekend getaway, this is like a perfect car with the back seat storage and also the large trunk. Way more usable than a Daytona. But that's like another positive thing about a 365 GTC4. Well, there you have it, 365 GTC4 at my shop. So I'm going to start figuring it out, try to get this thing to run as well as she can. So look forward to some more videos of this coming soon. Thanks for watching.